come to an event like this, and I'm sure you go to a lot of conferences and so on and so, what is it that you're looking out for?
You know, what's great about Bloomberg Screen Time is you have everybody that's important in media, both old media and new media, which a lot of conferences miss either one silo or the other, and they are converging, and therefore their competitive statements are relevant to both sides of the business.
Who's making this convergence the best?
Amazon. I think Amazon and YouTube. I think if you think about Wall Street.
Which is interesting because they're both like new media first, right?
Yep.
They're not incumbents.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
they're
now
not.
They could be, but no, not
And I think sometimes incumbents ignore them, and I think Wall Street doesn't think that's actually the smartest move.
There was an interesting comment in the Jimmy Kimmel conversation last night about how Jimmy Kimmel looks at YouTube and if he's changed his show as a result of YouTube. And he said, I haven't ever changed my show for YouTube, but I do like to wake up and see that a few million people have watched it. But he did say, ABC doesn't make money from YouTube. YouTube is the one who makes the money.
I don't know. I know YouTubers who are sailing around the world and they're making millions of dollars a year. Sounds like a good life to me.
But there's a disintermediation happening right there. So even if he's getting more eyeballs, he's not seeing the revenue.
I think the important point here is we have a funnel. You need to have young people at the top of the funnel to create a TV, let's call it a habit, and not just video games or not just interactivity or not just short form on TikTok. So television has to have top of the funnel. YouTube does that for you. So this notion of money now versus money later, you must have that top of the funnel for young people to come to longer form, high quality programming.
Which makes me think about the interest in Warner Brothers Discovery. On that, Greg Peters of Netflix said, or he was asked about it with Lucas Shaw, if he was interested in Warner Brothers Discovery. He talked about it last night. Let's listen to what he had to say.
There's been some reports around you guys being interested in Warner Brothers Discovery. Is there any truth to that?
I would say this, we come from a deep heritage of being builders rather than buyers. I also think that it's, one should have a reasonable amount of skepticism around big media mergers. They don't have an amazing track record over, the history of time. So, I would say it's our responsibility to evaluate all our options and try.
So you'll have a conversation, but the odds of an offer are pretty low.
Yeah, our job is to figure out what's the best way to grow our business, right? And then we have to think, really carefully, how do we invest, our capital, our time, and our attention? And if that's the best way to do it, great. And if it's not, then we should do something else.
All right. That, of course, Greg Peters over at Netflix talking with Lucas Shaw last night. Warner Brothers, and then there's also David Ellison, that there's been talk that maybe he'll be interested. Is that a good, is that a good mix of businesses, Warner Brothers? Is that about going after the younger consumer?
No, it's not. But I would say this, that Netflix continues to try to create IP from scratch. And as we know from the sequelization of the box office, starting with the embedded fandom from 30 years ago, 50 years ago, and then holding on, because it creates value in your old stuff when you create something with that IP in the new, currently.
Like a Happy Gilmore 2.
Yeah, that. And if so, I ultimately think he gave a non-answer. He gave a very thoughtful non-answer.
Does that mean that maybe they are interested?
I think ultimately they must buy established IP because it's so risky. Not necessarily Warner Brothers, but they must buy IP that they have library value that they can then make new and own it.
I did not get that from his answer. I love that you're saying this. My response to hearing that was, okay, he says they're builders, not buyers. They haven't traditionally made big acquisitions.
And they said they'd never do live sports, and they said they'd never do advertising. So, non-answers aren't even an outright denial. Maybe he'd be more likely to buy to be outright denied.
So who should they buy?
Good question. They need something with deep IP. These 50-year-old libraries are far and few between. They didn't buy Paramount, which would have been also a very big, deep library, and it would have been a quarter as expensive. So we'll have to see. But in the end, I do believe Netflix must own deep IP and stop just taking the risk that you're creating something from scratch because maybe it's cheaper.
All right, so let's go to David Ellison of Skydance Paramount, who also was asked about, there's been rumors about that they are getting ready to make a bid on Warner Brothers. What do you think about that combination?
Well, I think the thing about David Ellison so far is he has been really quiet with Wall Street about what these individual tactical moves he's making, how they fit together. So he overpaid for UFC, outbidding Netflix, $7 billion a year, $1 billion a year for 7 years. Waste of money. I think he wasted $1 billion, mostly of his money, but public shareholder money. And now he just bought the Free Press for $150 million. I think it was worth 20. So it destroyed $100 million in the scheme of life, not destroying billions, but totally unclear how these fit together, what the vision is. So the idea of him buying Warner Brothers, like if he isn't articulating a vision, I don't know why public shareholders are paying part of the bill.
So he's not doing a good job.
Not doing a good job.
Why do you think the free press was not a good buy?
I think he overpaid. I think Wall Street hates. I think it's unclear you can monetize podcasts, and I think we hate everything that is doesn't have a clear revenue stream associated with it.
He argues that, and he said this during the conversation with Lucas earlier, that he wants to appeal to the 70% of people who identify as right of center and left of center. That's who he wants to bring in, and he thinks that Barry Weiss can help do that. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, looking at her, we'll see today because she just showed up in the CBS boardroom, but she's, I would say, a highly polarized figure. So we'll see how she does and how long she lasts. Not clear.
Do you think the news business is long for being at CBS? Do they keep it?
Yeah, I think they keep it. I think you need live programming, and live programming is sports, which is really expensive, and news, which isn't quite as expensive, and really smart people that have a point of view. They get paid to have a point of view, and they're deep thinkers. So we'll see. I mean, he's trying to he's doing tactical things without communicating an overall vision, and I don't know what that means. I understand niche audiences. I understand if you want to target conservatives or if you want to target liberals. It's a polarized political environment. How do you target both? That doesn't actually feel like a target market. It feels like a mass market, but that is what CBS did before, and it sounds like he thinks he's doing something different. So I'm confused.
Laura, does what is going on at CBS and Skydance and Paramount, does that impact the owners of, I think about the traditional networks of NBC and ABC? How does that deal impact the rest of the media space? Or you don't, because you don't sound like you respect what he's doing.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's done good work yet, or at least he hasn't communicated. I mean, there is a communication function when you're a public company that he is, I'd give him a B- at doing. And
he says he likes being public.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but okay, good for him. So we're paying part of the bill. The public shareholders are paying part of his bill, so I guess he should. I would say, look, we just wrote a piece saying that ABC, which is Disney, should just shut down ABC, because then they become unregulated, and the FCC on the Kimmel thing is getting involved in free speech. So if Disney just shut it down, we think it's a $10 billion write-off. One time only, and now they would be unregulated. Yay, seems like a lot of, Wall Street would add it back. It's a one-time write-off. We think they should just shut it down.
Good for Wall Street, maybe not so good for the competition.
Voices, competition. It'd be bad for a lot of things in D.C., but I could say the same thing about CBS. I think, Larry Ellison Larry the dad has a privileged position with Donald Trump, so no need for him. I mean, Brendan Carr's not going to get in his way because of the friendship with the president, and the FCC is an executive branch regulatory agency. So he doesn't need to shut it down, but I think broadcasters are irrelevant today.